has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's a dog.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of TableSetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Welcome, everybody, to the show. It is the Wayne Gretzky, Aaron Judge episode 99 here, one away from the century mark. Thanks for coming back and tuning in here. We're just a few days removed from episode 98. We figured, we'll bookend your weekend. You probably listened to us maybe on Friday. Now you can listen to us Monday morning, so we can wrap up the weekend and give us our thoughts. A good weekend of baseball. A lot of contenders matching up against one another these past few days.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely was a good weekend of baseball, and putting an exclamation point on what is going to be an insane run towards October with some teams. And watch the Milwaukee Brewers really separate themselves from the pack and really show why they have the moxie to be potentially a championship team going forward. And you'll definitely talk about the Mets in your opening say, but we saw a lot from that team, a lot of gut checks for some teams this weekend. I think we're going to continue to see that week after week because it's crunch time at this point. You mentioned before, I mean, it is pivotal. There's must-win games. And looking at some of these teams, it's either you're going to sink or swim at some point.
Yeah, gut check is the right term here. We're seeing teams start to separate a little bit, teams going different directions. Some teams that have been back and forth that are finally putting it in full gear, and then other teams that are just slipping. And they're running out of time to get things together. This kind of thing, it snowballs, and once it starts going really fast downhill, sometimes it's hard to catch up. So we're going to talk about a few of those teams tonight and see if we're on the same page about these guys.
So if you guys want to support our show, you can follow us at TableSetters Pod on both IG and X. Devin running the Twitter machine over there, engaging with some contents, Twitter polls. We're about 2.5 thousand followers over there. So if you guys want to interact with us, it's usually going to be at the Twitter side of things. Of course, you send us a DM on Instagram. We'll get back to you as well. Let us know what you think of the show. And of course, if you could be so kind, leave a 5-star review for us. This helps in the algorithm on Apple, Spotify, etc. Helps other baseball fans find what we're doing over here. But Devin mentioned before, we're going to get right into our opening say and discuss all this things going around with really the two teams in New York that have just been wildly disappointing. So when we last joined you guys, I went off about the Yankees. Devin posted the reel talking about me being more of the level-headed Yankee fan, and I too was calling for Aaron Boone's head. And with that being said, Thursday night came, and then we watched the opening of the series against the Astros as we awaited all the old timers to come in house. And what a weekend it was for sure. It's supposed to be a celebration of the 2000 team, 25th anniversary of the Subway Series championship team. And they kicked off the weekend the only way the Yankees know how, and that's by ripping your heart out. And the Devin Williams stuff felt like it was going to be rock bottom for the weekend, but really wasn't that. I mean, at this point, Devin, the slide has gone from concerning to just flat out alarming. And they lost today 7-1 to the Astros. And I think it really underscored how things have fallen apart. And once comfortably in first place, this team looked like they were going to run away. We're looking at the record now, 20-31 since June 13th, dropping to third in the division. They're barely hanging to a playoff spot only because the Guardians stumbled over the weekend. And the more concerning things, it's happening on both sides of the balls. We mentioned the mental mistakes. We mentioned all the offense going really just very, very mute. And then pitching on their side as well. They've scored only 20 runs in the past 8 games, only 3 singles today. None until the 6th inning. Aaron Judge is 7 for 43, 163 stretch, but only 2 home runs and 17 strikeouts since returning from the IL. And manager Aaron Boone, we discussed it before, he certainly is on the hot seat. He keeps saying the same thing. He says the Yankees have had a much higher standard. They must find a way to turn things around. And we've been honest, man. Max Fried was the stopper for us all season. He carried a 1.92 ERA through June. Guy was legit. He looked like the best signing in the offseason. And since that point, he has a 6 ERA in the last 7 starts. So he's not even able to put lipstick on what's going on here. He allowed 4 runs on 8 hits today. He got a walk over 5 innings. And who else? Jose Altuve tore the Yankees up this weekend and recovering from miscues, of course. Misplayed ball in the outfield from Jason Dominguez. What else is new? I mean, I don't even want to get into the Devin Williams thing because I'm like so fired up about it beyond belief. How does he get in that spot where the usage of him is just baffling? For him to come out there in a high leverage spot again at Yankee Stadium, it just makes no sense to me. That alone was a fireable offense. But at this point, who has a safer job than Aaron Boone? If you're going to perform the way he's performing, making decisions he's going to be making, you can't look at this team and say he's ever going to be fired, because if you're not fired off of what happened on Friday with the Devin Williams thing and how he handled the Jazz Chisholm thing, he's never going to be fired. He has the safest job in all of America.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance he's gone before the season's end. I think if this continues, and especially if they miss the playoffs, I would be surprised if they don't move on from him. But maybe I shouldn't be, because it just seems to be status quo with management there. And obviously the Steinbrenner in charge is not George Sr. It's different. It's much different. I will say, when I was cutting that clip of last week's episode, which we recorded Thursday night, where you're talking about how egregious it was for them to put Devin Williams in, it was crazy to me, because literally after you said that, they put him in again in a situation. That one was really interesting too, because like everyone and their mother was tweeting like, how can they do this? Even the John Heymans of the world were putting out tweets like, this is an awful, awful move. Like, people who wouldn't usually be that critical of the Yankees in that spot were just crapping on him. Even John Boy, who, is interviewing Aaron Boone very often, went on there and had to like call it like it was. Like, this is just unbelievable. Everybody watching knows this is the wrong move, except for Aaron Boone somehow. And you said it last week. He just doesn't have a feel for the game right now. He doesn't have a feel for the team right now. He doesn't have a feel for his players. So, yeah, I mean, when they again, this is the second time recently that they were able to scrape out that close win where it felt like they needed every little thing at the end to get that win. David Bednar comes in, I believe, gets a 4-out save. And, big ups to him, even though I think he walked a batter in there that, looked like it was going to be kind of the death knell, but he figures it out. But then the next day you come out flat, and today you lose 7-1 and never looked like you had a chance. And here's the thing. If you get shut down by like Hunter Brown or Framber Valdez, all right, it is what it is. But like Jason Alexander is on the mound. No, not George Costanza, like some Jason Alexander dude that pitches in the major leagues that a lot of us probably have never seen before. Shuts you down, has a no-hitter in the 6th inning. That's rough as a Yankee fan to look at, coming off a win that some of Yankee fans probably felt like that's a momentum builder. Like, that was a big win there against the Astros. We were able to hold it together after blowing the lead. We were able to, the Grisham home run is huge. By the way, Trent Grisham, one of the most clutch hitters this year. If you look at the numbers, something like 80 or 85% of his home runs have come in clutch situations. So like, we should put that out there on a positive note. Trent Grisham, big ups to him. But as a Yankee fan, I'd be concerned. You mentioned it. The pitching is not what it was earlier in the year. I would also be worried about the Aaron Judge stuff. Like, he's back, but is he truly Aaron Judge right now? That elbow might linger. If he's not popping bombs at a decent rate, it doesn't seem like the same Aaron Judge. And let's be honest, the Yankees feed off of that guy. Like, how he goes, they go sometimes. So I think there's a lot to worry about as a Yankee fan. I mean, the Blue Jays pull out a big win today against the Dodgers. In a game, it looked like the Dodgers were destined to come back and win and have a walk-off, and the umpires seemed to try to help them in that game as well. And the Blue Jays get a big win to salvage a game in that series and climb a little further away from the Yankees once again. You mentioned a couple other teams right behind them for that last wild card spot. So, I mean, eventually things have to start going up a little bit, no?
Do they? I mean, at some point you think that they would, but like I said before, they're mired in the stretch, which feels like it's not even a short sample size anymore. 20 and 31. No. If let's look at the really the objective point of view. When Girardi was fired from the Phillies in the beginning of the year, it's because of the slow start. And the record wasn't even close. It was egregious. I believe they were 2 games under 500. If Aaron Boone was to start the season 20 and 31, do you think he would lose his job? I believe just looking at the record 20 and 31 has to make you feel, okay, this is a team that's going nowhere. And at any point in the season, if you go 20 and 31, you're not a playoff team. And I think they're looking at the 2000 team as an example. You heard all the commentary about this team and they're celebrated and all that. The 2000 team was not a good baseball team. And even hear some of the guys on that team discussing how the Yankees use muscle memory to get to the World Series and eventually beat the Mets, motivated by fear by George Steinbrenner, because he was saying that you can't lose this World Series. But those were the stories we're hearing. And I feel like that's more of what we're hearing from Aaron Boone of just get there. We've had past Yankee teams, even the ones he's managed, rebounding from similar funks. But to me, I think the season is ticking down. And for you to experiment with Devin Williams in spots to try to get him right in a game that you need is just egregious. How about you try to get Devin Williams right in a spot that doesn't matter, a mop-up role? Say you're up by 7 runs. I mean, maybe that'd be a nice thing if we're up by 7 runs. Or maybe you're down today. You're down 7-1. Bring Devin Williams out in the game and let him try to work it out or figure it out and get some confidence back. For you to be a manager, anyone on the Yankee staff, to let Devin Williams go out there in a high leverage situation with a guy on second base, the ghost man there, how do you not look at this guy walking out of the bullpen to the mound with his shoulder slumped? The guy has no confidence. It's like not even fair to Devin Williams at this point. I listened to the direct reaction. Keith McPherson was on the Fan right after the game, and I had to consume something. He was saying he's off the merry-go-round. That is this Yankee season. I'm just done. He was in the stadium. People were heckling Devin Williams, and they couldn't believe it when they saw his name pop up on the board that the call to the bullpen is Devin Williams. How do you make that decision? It makes no sense in any world that he be the guy coming out of the bullpen. It literally could have been anybody else. To sit here and say it's going to be Devin Williams in that spot, it feels like you're just laughing in our face. Michael Kay said it. Quit pissing on us and tell me it's raining. Like, we know what Devin Williams is at this point. I want to give love to Trent Grisham, though, because I know it gets lost in this weekend. They lost 2-3 to the Astros. And what else is new? The Astros absolutely dominate the Yankees. Altuve is a thorn in our side. Correa returns to 2017 form all of a sudden.
Of course.
But we had the Yankee Report on Instagram doing the Yankees best hitters by WRC Plus in high leverage since 2002. So some of the names on here would surprise you. Trent Grisham's number 3, batting 346 in these high leverage situations. The only 2 names in front of him, Robinson Cano from 2013 and 2018 Gleyber Torres. But some big names on there are Deki Matsui, 07 A-Rod, 2004 Gary Sheffield. So this is taking into account. But Trent Grisham has been clutch, not even just his time with the Yankees. We talked about it with DSG, Matt over there. I mean, his time with the Padres, the guy finds a way to get big hits. And he seemed pissed about the quick pitch that he got, the first pitch of that at bat. And he wound up just taking the Astros pitcher really deep. And you think that'd be a momentum shift of being like, this will turn us around, like you mentioned. But unfortunately, it's start, stop. And eventually the season is going to be over. We're approaching September. This team has to get out of this funk. To be 20-31 in your last 51 games, that's alarming. That's a big chunk of the season. That's not just a slide at some point. You could look at losing streaks. We've seen them all together, but you bake it all together. Fried's not the same. They're not scoring runs. Aaron Judge is mired in a slump. The lipstick that was Aaron Judge and Max Fried has been evaporated from them. And the Yankees right now have a lot of holes, and someone has to be held accountable for it. The word is accountable. Figure this out.
Yeah, and you're right. You've said it a few times. Like, they haven't been good for a while now. It's not just like a 1-week slump, 2-week thing, not just post All-Star break. Like, it's been a long time since the Yankees felt like a good baseball team. And I don't know if we've ever felt like they've been a dominant baseball team this year. You know, there's been some stretches where they hit tons of home runs, but have we ever felt like they're an all well put together team? I don't think so. Since June 1st, they've given up 290 runs. That is 6th worst in the league. The only teams worse, Atlanta, we know all their problems. I mean, they're running a fake rotation out there now. All their guys are hurt. St. Louis, 299. Minnesota, 314. They've also torn it down now. And then Washington, 342. And Colorado with a laughable 388. But obviously, the Coors Field effect doesn't help them. But that's not a group of names you really want to be in right now. I mean, none of those other teams I just mentioned are playoff teams. I mean, St. Louis once was in the mix. I don't think anyone truly feels like they're in the mix. They might not be that far out of it. But, you know, and then, I mean, even the team behind them is the Angels, who have given up 288. So, like, they're surrounded by teams you don't really want to be surrounded by. Jorge Posada there for Old Timers Day, they asked him, like, what he feels like they need to kind of turn the page and get to a good part of the season. And he said, I feel like they got to get a little mad. Like, they got to stop being so chummy. And this is a common thread from guys that played in the 90s and maybe even early 2000s, where it's like, you know, everybody's too friendly. And I think we as fans feel that. I know I feel that sometimes. I just, you know, I like it better when it's Padres, Dodgers, like teams that just don't like each other. And even if it's not that much hatred, like, you don't have to be buddy during the game. You want to talk after the game, fine. But yeah, I think he said the Yankees need to, you know, have a little grudge there. Like, seeing Grisham get mad and then, like, you know, let out that yell as soon as he hit it. That's why I think a lot of Yankee fans probably watched that and then saw Bednar get the save and were like, you know what? I think this is a turning point, especially against the Astros. And laying a dud the next day completely kills that vibe. And you know, on a separate note, Mariano Rivera, like, get well soon. I don't think I ever felt I had anything in common with Mariano Rivera until yesterday when we get the report from Roger Clemens saying he tore his Achilles. Now I'm brothers with Mariano Rivera. I know how bad that sucks. So, he's trying. It stinks. It's a similar situation. He's going out to have some fun with his buddies. And next thing you know, he's on the shelf. His life is a little bit changed for 9 to 12 months. Fuck, it blows. But yeah, the Yanks, man, maybe they do need a fight. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe they need to get in a fight sometime soon. I don't know. I think we're running out of ideas. Aaron Boone's not going anywhere, though.
Yeah, I'm just sick of this. Like, they will come together. I believe in this team. It's the best team we've ever put together. Yes, you can continue to say that. Maybe you believe it in some quiet moments, but eventually, like you said, the clock is ticking on this season. But a good transition to your opening say was seeing how well constructed this Brewers team is, because the antithesis of what the Yankees do, of being this like parts that don't really fit together sometimes and not playing cohesive defense. When you watch the Brewers play a full 9 innings, and then you've been watching them the last 3 games, really just tear apart the Mets. They do this by, there's not a star player. Of course, they do have, a lot of great talent, but this is a collective unit that does the small things right. And watching them from time to time, whether it be the bullpen getting clutch outs or like, you feel like there's a momentum, especially when they're in Milwaukee at home, that they're going to find a way to get it done. And they did just that all 3 games against the Mets.
I'll tell you what they do well. They take advantage of every opening you give them. Anytime you let them back in the game, they take full advantage. That's what the Mets did all weekend. Mets also ran into some bad luck. They caught some bad breaks. There was even the second game of the series, close game, and there's a line drive out to right field that Juan Soto catches. And then after the catch is made, the umpire said, oh, actually, it was a clock violation, pitch clock violation. The guy gets first base. I've never seen this happen yet. He did not put his hands up until after. I don't even think that's allowed. I don't know. I haven't heard much about it, or I don't know if the league has responded. Some people were saying the Mets should play under protest. The first game of the series, McNeil looks like he gets the big game-tying hit in the 9th against McGill, and one of the best throws I've seen a center fielder make in a long time, and it was the hardest throw he's made from center field by like 8 miles per hour, and it's dead on. And I know, again, the Mets get criticism because they thought Tyrone Taylor should have pinch run for Starling Marte. Listen, that throw had to be perfect, and it was. Like, you got at that one, you just got to tip the cap to the center fielder, Perkins. And then today, they have a 5-0 lead. It looks like, all right, finally they're gonna salvage this one and let's move on and give it up. Brewers creep closer and closer and closer and walk it off against Edwin Diaz with a home run. They're a little bit snake bit, but they're also leaving the door open for these teams. And I'll tell you, I know a lot of people, and I'm sorry. Here, I don't want to compare this to the Yankees because the Yankee situation has been going on for a long time. So I think it's valid to call for Aaron Boone's head now, especially with the accountability stuff. With the Mets, I feel like it's a lot of simpletons calling for Mendoza's head. It's his second season as manager. Last year, we were praising this dude for hitting all the right buttons, making all the right moves. People were calling him, including myself, like a future managerial star. And suddenly we think he's just lost his mind in less than a year. This is not an example of, like, the Yankee situation is completely different in my mind. I don't watch this Mets team and feel like, oh my God, they're just bullshitting out there because their manager is not holding them accountable or they're playing, terrible baseball. No, like they're snake bit and no one's playing very well. No one's playing their best baseball. We finally saw Francisco Lindor get so frustrated. He slammed his glove in the dugout after making an error at shortstop. And you very rarely see him show that type of emotion. They are frustrated right now. And the problem is multifaceted. We talked last week. I mentioned about how they're Fab Four, if you want to call them that, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso, and Lindor were all struggling mightily at the same time. Soto's turned it on a little bit, hitting some home runs, right? I know a lot of them are solo home runs. He's started to earn the nickname Juan Solo, but at least he's hitting a little bit and having some moments. Alonso's had some moments, too, in that series. Obviously tied Strawberry, which is just like a footnote, tying Strawberry for the Mets' all-time home run record and doing it much quicker than Strawberry did it. It's just a footnote because of how bad they've played and how many losses in a row they have, which is 7 now, which is a shame. Hopefully when he breaks it, it's on a little better, the team's actually doing well too. But anyway, here's what I'll say. We could highlight a bunch of different problems right now. I think in addition to their stars at one point struggling all at the same time, right now, the biggest long-term problem, and I think it's very concerning, it's because it's been going on all season, even when they were successful. They don't have people, starting pitchers, that can give them decent innings almost ever. David Peterson is the only guy in that staff that can get through 6. No one else can. And I thought that once Manaea and Senga were back, we'd kind of have 2 like semi-aces. We have no aces on this team. There is not one ace. The pitching staff is completely mediocre. And I'll be honest, this was most people's fear in the beginning of the year. Like, all right, we have a lineup that should be good, right? A lot of big-time star hitters with a track record. Bullpen ended up getting smashed by injury, but when we came into the season, we felt good. And now we feel good about the bullpen again because we got some reinforcements. But you are behind the 8 ball every night if you have a starting pitcher who's only going for 5 innings. The bullpen gets worn down. Even if it's a good bullpen, it gets taxed. You're just putting your team in bad spots. Manaea's given a lead today. He can't hold it. He and Senga both have had nagging injuries, so I don't know if either of those dudes are going to look like themselves completely. Senga, when he looks good, he looks great. It's hard to score a run off him. These last 3 or 4 starts, he looks completely pedestrian. So I don't know if we're going to see the ace like Senga or the ace like Manaea. And if we don't, I don't know if this is ending. I really don't. We are now 5.5 games behind the Phillies, and the wild card, just like the Yankees, like we're just barely holding on. I think this is a little bit. I don't see this as an indictment on Mendoza at all. I see this as a little bit as an indictment on David Stearns. I got to say it. He was brought over here and kind of, called the boy genius. Like we thought he was going to do amazing things. He's the guy who's given $17 million a year to a Frankie Montas, who looks like he should not go through a batting order more than once. Truly, he does not look like he should get a second turnaround at any order. $17 million a year for multiple years. Don't know what he saw in that dude. I think we were all hoping Montas was Luis Severino 2.0. He's not. Clay Holmes turning him into a starter, it's been relatively successful, but also he's having trouble getting deep into games at all. You went with Senga and then eventually Manaea as the top of your rotation. I know we have a lot of young guns that are very exciting, and we should all be looking forward to. Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, and eventually Jonah Tong. And there's some others down there as well that aren't quite as big of names yet. Our rotation for the future may be very exciting, but that's not helping us right now. Even if those kids are called up, like I don't know how much we're expecting of them. We don't want them to be our saviors. The rotation is a problem. David Stearns has missed the mark. And here's the other thing. We just played his former team, the Brewers. They look pretty damn good without him. And sure, you can say some of those pieces he's responsible for, at least partly, but not everything. Not everything on that Brewers team is David Stearns. So you start to get a little concerned. Like, was he actually this boy genius, or was he a little overrated? You got Soto, but let's be honest, that's more so Steve Cohen's money. So I think there has to be at least a little concern going forward with, does David Stearns really have full control of how this team should be molded into a, not just like sort of wild card contender like they are now, like a World Series, like top 4 World Series contender every year. You have Steve Cohen's money. You have Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor. You should be a top 4 World Series contender every single year going forward for a long time.
The one silver lining I will take for the Mets here, and you remember the beginning of the season, of course, you do, from last year where the Mets looked dead on arrival and who is this team? It's a joke. This is the last place team. And then they turn it on. I think that there's always going to be spurts with the team. And right now the offense feels like it's not clicking. Like you said, Soto's coming around and figuring it out. But when this offense is clicking all together, it does mask a lot of the shortcomings pitching wise for them. And I think that's what we saw last year. Senga, of course, was much better going deeper into games. Someone has to step up. And whether it's going to be Manaea or it's going to be Senga or it's going to be Clay Holmes, someone has to step up and bridge the gap to give this bullpen a little bit of a rest and have them be able to extend the games. Because that's exactly what happened today. They're up 5-0, and the Brewers just outlasted them because they're able to fight this war of attrition because they're more well-rounded. Yeah. Going back to the Mendoza's job being on the line here, I do agree with you. I think it is ridiculous. He is from the learning tree of Aaron Boone, so I think people point to that and say he is Aaron Boone. He's from the same school of thought. But if you watch Mendoza on a daily basis, and a lot of people don't, because one of the things you see in baseball, and a lot of baseball podcasts do this, and pundits, I'm hearing fantasy conversation, mispronouncing names. I think a lot of people out there don't watch the games, Devin. Like I feel like a lot of people out there are reading the stat lines. And you can see Mendoza like, yeah, this is where he came from. He couldn't be more opposite of an Aaron Boone to me. I feel like he's more emotionally driven. This guy has a little bit more of an old school feel. He does, in my opinion, hold his team accountable. There's a leadership role. He feels like he has a presence in that dugout. And I completely disagree where his job should be in the line. I think sitting at 63 and 55, no matter how you got there at this point, yes, the Phillies are 5.5 games up. You've lost 7 straight, but through the aggregate at this point, I think the Mets at this point, he's done a really good job navigating, which is a non-existent pitching staff, to be the fact that they're even where they are right now in shouting distance of a division race. He deserves credit, Mendoza. Like you said, criticism for Stearns, how this team is constructed, that is well-deserved. And by the end of this year, he will be judged by where the Mets are standing. If they're able to do what they did last year and get to a championship series, hell yeah. Maybe we're looking at the same type of story here where he's going to be praised as quote unquote the boy genius. But I think the Mets right now are just in a bad spell, and losing 7 straight will do that to you. Will wear you down watching these games. They lost 11 of the last 12. It's tough. It's a tough watch. It really is. Like you said before, it's not actually losing games. They're losing tough games, and sometimes they look just non-competitive. So for the Mets, man, this is just a tough part of the season. I'm less concerned about them than the Yankees. I think that there's more to be excited about for whether it be the young players coming up for the Mets. And I think they're able to weather the storm. If the Mets can get in the playoffs, whether it's by division title or through a wild card, I think they're more dangerous and more well-rounded to go deeper than the Yanks.
Yeah, you need to snap out of this. You're going to need someone to have a big performance. And listen, Citi Field has been rocking all damn year, so you can't blame anything like that. But if you go back to Citi Field and you're still losing, like, the fans need to see something, man. Like, if you throw Frankie Montas back on that Citi Field mound to be like a true starter, the crowd is going to go nuts very soon. They've already booed some of like the mainstay players, so they're surely going to boo the hell out of Montas, who after this game, the second game of the series, was quoted as saying, "I felt like I threw pretty good." And I know not all of it was him. Like, Lindor made the error that didn't allow him to get out of that inning as quickly as he should have. But like, he hasn't looked great. He doesn't look like he belongs out there on a contender. Bring Brandon Sproat up. Give the kid a chance and give something for the fans to be excited about. Like, we need something to bring the morale up. And when your leader, Francisco Lindor, clearly looks this frustrated, Soto's not going to be the verbal leader of the clubhouse. I just know that's not his role. Pete, as goofy as he is, like as said, that's not really his thing. Nimmo's more of an example guy. Jeff McNeil's a psycho, and he's honestly playing better than most people. I don't know where it comes from. We don't have Jose Iglesias in the dugout anymore. And to be honest, I've said this numerous times. His arrival last year was, in my opinion, it wasn't grimace. Jose Iglesias, his arrival to that clubhouse, not just his play on the field, I think was when they turned the corner. I feel like he loosened everybody up. He was fun to be around. I don't know if we have that dude this year. And that's a little concerning because something's got to snap these guys out of it. And it's not Carlos Mendoza. It's the players. No one's playing up to the back of their baseball card this year. Like, nobody. That happened in Buck Showalter's second year as manager. Like, it was like a year after they won 100 games. And the next year, it's like the same team. And they were terrible. Everybody had a bad year, which you don't think happens in baseball. It happens. So that's not how this season started, but it's how it feels right now.
Yeah, I think a good deodorant for this would be for them to rip off 9 straight like the Brewers are right now. And I can't wrap my head around the Brewers and what they're doing right now. And I know a lot of people in baseball are trying to figure it out. And this is a copycat league, so they're going to try to carbon copy what Milwaukee's doing and recreating the vibes. I don't know if it's possible, because what Milwaukee's doing, this feels like a magic carpet ride type of situation. And I guess the one caveat, if you're a Milwaukee Brewers fan who is so desperate for the success, I guess the piece that you have to be cautious with is, are you getting too hot right now? Are you not peaking at the right time? For me, looking at them almost 30 games over 500, are we looking at a Brewers team that's going to taper out? And you're going to watch the Dodgers get there and just battle through the injuries they have, and all of a sudden just emerge past them. That's my biggest fear from Milwaukee. But watching them, as well constructed as they are, they do everything right. And despite the Yankees playing poorly, the one thing I do enjoy is watching teams get rewarded for doing the fundamentals of baseball, playing small ball, hitting situationally. All those things need to come back into the game. Just like the stolen base came back when you made the bases a little bit bigger. You need these pieces of baseball. It can't just be about hitting the home run and striking guys out. It has to be all these little pieces, because it goes a very long way. Point in case, the almost 30 games over 500, the best record in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers doing it on the backs of, do you know Isaac Collins? I mean, he might be the NL Rookie of the Year, but do you know these guys? Because you better get to know them, because if they're going to make a run like they are right now, these are going to be some household names going forward.
Yeah, and look out, because they might actually be getting even better. William Contreras just had a great series against the Mets, and he's been a little bit of a sleepwalker all season. He has not lived up to last season. He hasn't been the same dude. If he gets hot and he's last year's Contreras in that Brewers lineup, I mean, he killed us this week. And sometimes all it takes is one tremendous series to all of a sudden turn it on. And I mean, you get another guy that can do that kind of damage in that lineup. They're a hard team to face. I will say maybe the one silver lining for the Mets is they were in every single one of these games. And if a couple things go slightly differently, they maybe win 2 of 3 here. But they've got to figure out how to get across the finish line against these teams.
And the one thing waiting too, Jackson Trio will make his way back to Milwaukee as well. 21 years old, electrifying. So they got some reinforcements on the way. But let's head towards the rest of the news and go through the meat of the order.
We have the meat.
All right, I mentioned them by name before. The Los Angeles Dodgers, and what else is new? Shohei Ohtani. Let's put the graphic on the board here. We saw him get 40 home runs this weekend. He didn't stop with 40. He hit 41 today. So fastest player in Dodgers history to reach the milestone, doing it in 117 team games. We saw, like I mentioned before, hit that 41st against the Blue Jays. So it moved him just one past Kyle Schwarber for the National League lead, keeps him on pace for really one of the more prolific power seasons of his career. And just some stats from context for Shohei Ohtani. He's now just the 4th player in Dodgers history with multiple 40 home run seasons. This joins Duke Snider, who has 5, Gil Hodges with 2, Shawn Green has 2. And he's one of only 6 players in Major League Baseball history to have 4 separate 40 home run seasons before turning 32. And is the only active player to reach that mark. And this current streak of 3 consecutive 40 home run seasons matches the longest active in baseball, and places him alongside names like A-Rod, Albert Pujols, and Ken Griffey Jr., who maintained extended stretches of 40 home run power. Shohei Ohtani, I mean, I understand we're watching greatness in real time. You compare the numbers. We have to put appreciation on him. I know that there's a lot of people dunking on him and being the face of the league. I'm part of it. He gets shoved down your throat. But we are watching the benchmark for elite sluggers. This is one of the guys we're watching in real time doing something special. I mean, only a select group have managed to do it in both leagues. I mean, Ohtani obviously accomplishes MVP level years with the Angels, and then on top of it doing with the Dodgers. So you got to appreciate the fact he did it in the National League and the American League. And this is a guy we've only seen the likes of Babe Ruth. What other player are you comparing to the name Babe Ruth, who redefined baseball? And 41 through 118 team games. He's on pace right now for 56, would be the highest total from a National League player since Stanton hit 59 in 2017. So are we going to see 60 from Shohei? Is he our National League MVP? I give you the floor.
I mean, well, that's going to bring us into the next conversation. But before we compare him to another dude, let me just ask you this. I put something up on X last week where if you look at some of the major stats, whether it be average, OPS, WRC plus, anything like that, even strikeout percentage, it is very clear this season. So June 16th, I believe, was the first time he pitched, came back to pitch. His numbers pre-pitching this year and post-pitching, don't get me wrong, still an amazing player in both sides, but clearly better before he started pitching again. Like basically what it is, it's all world hitter before he starts pitching, and then really good every year all-star after he starts pitching. And he started to look better and better pitching on the mound as well, if we want to talk about that. Obviously, they're increasing his innings as slowly as I've ever seen anyone increase innings. I think Robert said this week he'll pitch 4 innings. It's like, still, he's started several times at this point, but they're going baby steps. But in your mind, you know, this is the age-old discussion that we've had really since he got hurt the first time pitching. Do you think they're correct for continuing the path with letting him go back to being a two-way player? Or have you seen enough over the last year and a half or so to convince you, you know what, they really should just pump the brakes and just let this guy hit and be one of the best hitters we've ever seen?
I say pump the brakes. I think what we're seeing from him is special, and the fact he can do both of it, he's already shown he can do it, but the numbers are there at this point. As historic as this season has been, it isn't up to Ohtani standards, which is insane to say. He hasn't played offensively as well as he could. The fact that he's at 41 home runs in 118 games shows that offensively, where else could he be if he was focused on just the hitting? And for me, the injury history and worried about stuff with the elbow, and I just wouldn't worry about all the other stuff, especially if you're only getting 1 or 2 innings. What is the point of being able to manage both these things? And I mean, looking at the rotation, obviously Yamamoto being the ace, Glasnow, Blake Snell, Clayton Kershaw's a shell of who he was. You're looking for some guys to come back from the IL. I think if this team is going to repeat as a champion, you need him at his maximum capacity as a hitter. And if you can't do both exceptionally well without the risk of injury, I'd rather just focus on the hitting. I don't know what the benefit is unless he's out there saying, I want to pitch. Like, let me go out there
I think that's part
pitch. Of it. To me, if I'm the Los Angeles Dodgers, you have to look at him as this is the golden goose. Why would you want to waste him on getting hurt, throwing 2 innings of just trying to get him stretched out? It feels like you said, it's so extended. Unless he's going to go out there and throw 7 innings, 8 innings, no hit ball, what is the point of being this either opener or a reliever? Like, I understand he can be electric, but to me, if he's going to manifest you into another championship season, it's best served just hitting and not worrying about the other side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm looking at the post I made. This was 3 days ago, August 7th. So it's the information is slightly outdated, but only by a few days, and it's going to get the point across. The differences this year are significant. Again, still an amazing player either way. But if you look at, and some people will say, well, you know what, we're willing for him to be a little less of a hitter if he's also providing us great pitching. I get that argument too. But so before June 5th or through June 15th, before he was pitching, 297 batting average. After, 239 batting average. Before 642 slug, after 546 slug. I mean, almost 100 points difference there. Before pitching, 178 WRC plus, after 147 WRC plus. Strikeout percentage, as far as him at bat, how much he's striking out. 24.2% before he started pitching, 31.3% after he started pitching. There is that thing, man, where you have another big thing to think about. Of course, it can affect your offensive game. I don't think that's a stretch at all. But to go back to what you initially asked, is he the NL MVP? I mean, as of now, I think it's up for debate. I think the debate most of the year has been PCA and Shohei, and PCA's hit the skids a little bit in the second half. I mean, it's a smaller sample size, and the numbers altogether are still fantastic. And the weird thing is, like, you look at the WAR, and that could make an argument that PCA should have the better odds. Meanwhile, Shohei's odds of MVP are so much better than PCA's. It's kind of crazy. But now the other name, and I think this is the name we started talking about Thursday night, the other name that has popped into this discussion is Kyle Schwarber. So I think what the conversation we want to have right now is, has Kyle Schwarber truly deserved or earned the right to be mentioned in the same breath as a Shohei Ohtani? I mean, I'm looking at the comparison on StatHead Baseball, which is part of Baseball Reference, right? When you can compare 2 players directly. And again, this is probably one day outdated because I don't think they update all the stuff until, I don't know, midnight or something like that. But coming into today, 5.6 B-WAR for Shohei, 4 WAR for Schwarber. They've played a very similar amount of games, 1 more for Schwarber. Similar plate appearances, about 15 more for Shohei. I mean, it's pretty even in some places. Obviously, home run is neck and neck. Schwarber has the RBIs. Ohtani has stolen bases, but not by as much as you think. He's not doing what he did last year as far as the stolen bases goes. 16. Do you know how many Schwarber has?
Schwarber, you said Shohei has 16. I would probably say 9 for Schwarber.
He's got 10. He's got 10.
Right.
I expected that to be the big difference between these two. Like, all right, a bunch of extra stolen bases is going to kind of put Shohei ahead, but a little surprising. Batting average, again, not as terrible of a difference as you would think. 282 for Shohei, 253 for Schwarber, which for him is a huge improvement over what he was doing a couple years ago. The slugging percentage, 614 for Ohtani, 584 for Schwarber. OPS, 999 for Shohei, 962 for Schwarber. OPS plus, 175 for Shohei, 159 for Schwarber, and both All-Stars. What that tells me is if Schwarber outplays Shohei for the next couple months, I do think he could be the MVP. Right now, it's Shohei. Those numbers, even though they're not crazy far apart. Now, some people might say if Shohei pitches the rest of the year, that automatically puts him ahead of Schwarber. I don't know. To me, if Schwarber outplays Shohei clearly for the next 2 months, I think it's Kyle Schwarber's award this year.
Yeah, they're pretty close. I think from a value standpoint, you look at Schwarber's 2025 campaign thus far, you have to compare him to where the Phillies are and where the Phillies would be without him. And I
Oh
guess
my
you can make the same conversation where the Dodgers would be. And I understand that there's writers, the people that vote on this have different opinions about what the MVP means. And there's been discretion for people to take here of, yes, MVP is the best overall player in the league or the most valuable player to their team. We've seen big moments from him. I think Schwarber's been essential to the Phillies' success, driving in runs, high leverage situations, looking at those stats as well. And the RBI total, not inflated by blowout scoring. You can see a significant percentage of them coming in games decided by 3 runs or fewer. That's a stat that exists that he has Shohei beat in. And that's not saying Shohei doesn't have the clutch gene, but those are things that you're looking at for a Kyle Schwarber being able, he has the ability to produce under pressure. I think people that are voters do often factor the clutchness into the MVP considerations. I think at some point, though, Ohtani is the reigning defending champion, that he's going to be knocked off definitively. If they're going to ride into the end of the season as close as they are, numbers, power, RBIs, and where they're sitting at, it's going to go to Ohtani because it's going to tip in the direction of we're seeing something special. We mentioned before, it's going to be a guy you're comparing to Babe Ruth. It's going to be hard for voters not to vote for Shohei Ohtani if it's at least comparable. So what Schwarber's going to have to do is he's going to have to go out there and really blow past power-wise. Like, can he get to a point where he has 5, 6, 7 more home runs than Shohei Ohtani if he slows down? Maybe if Shohei continues to pitch like you were talking about before,
right,
and all Schwarber's doing is focused on the offense, because we're looking at all the hard hit rate, the OPS, the barrel percentage right now. He's at the top of the NL leaderboard. This guy is having a special season, and go with the eye test as well. Both these players are having fantastic years. There's something different about the way Schwarber is barreling this ball this year, and watching what the Phillies have done. If you take Schwarber out of that lineup, I think this Phillies team is not even close to what they're doing today. And you take Ohtani out of that lineup, I'm not sure. I think the Dodgers would still be competitive. I think they're a little bit more able to do it through the aggregate than the Phillies without Schwarber.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I had this thought today too. Like, I see a lot of stuff, obviously, about comparison of Juan Soto first year with the Mets, Juan Soto last year with the Yankees. Very good on both sides, but obviously last year on the Yankees, just a ridiculous year. And the difference probably is the Aaron Judge effect in a way. And I wonder, like, who can you get on the Mets? Like, who might be available in free agency for the Mets to go get, where you could bat him behind Soto, where Soto can see, more pitches because you're afraid of the guy behind him. I was hoping Pete could be that guy, and I think early in the season he was. Don't forget how many clutch hits Pete was getting in the beginning of the year. He was punishing people for walking Soto in front of him, and obviously he's slowed down. He's kind of peaks and valleys for Pete all season. We don't know if he'll be back next year or not. We're going to go back and forth on that again, just like we did last year. The one guy I could come up with, because you're not getting Aaron Judge, right? He's not a free agent anytime soon. Kyle Schwarber. Like, you put Kyle Schwarber behind Juan Soto, like, people, especially when Schwarber goes in those modes, sicko modes for 2-3 weeks at a time, like, you're going to have to give Soto some pitches. And I know it's weird because Soto didn't always bat in front of Judge, right?
No.
So it's not necessarily A plus B equals C. Like, you can poke a hole in that argument right away. But still, I was trying to think of, like, who can you put in a lineup that would have a similar effect? Not that Kyle Schwarber is Aaron Judge, but there is that fear factor consistently. Now, I think that's a pipe dream because Kyle Schwarber, I think if he's not back in Philly, my guess is he'll want to go play somewhere more in the Midwest, like closer to home. But it's just the thought I had in my mind, and that's a compliment to Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, I think a big piece of Schwarber is watching what the rest of the season has to, and you couldn't ask for a better season for him to have. I think Philly's too good of a fit for him to want to leave. He's, like we said last week, he's becoming quickly the face of that franchise, which feels to me, I mean, that would have been laughable if you would have said that a year ago and said, like, this is Bryce Harper's team. I don't know. I mean, it feels like Kyle Schwarber's team. This team goes with Schwarber and what he does. This guy has ice water running through his veins in big moments. He had 412 in the World Series when he was there. Of course, the swing off victory. He stepped in for the aforementioned Ohtani in lieu of those stars not being there. Aaron Judge wasn't there. Ohtani was there. Guess who was there stepping up in the big moments? Kyle Schwarber. So he produces under pressure. There's a guy out there. Speaking of producing under pressure, we got Cal Riley, who definitely cooled off significantly since the All-Star break. Maybe you can attribute it to the home run derby affecting his swing, but putting some historical significance on this, 45 home runs, and he had his 45th today. Go back to 1970, Devin. Johnny Brent's put together one of the more remarkable offensive seasons ever by a catcher. He hit 45 home runs in total, drove in 148 runs, And he did that while catching 130 games. And you would have asked people maybe last year, 3 years ago, and said, is this the season that you can probably put together again? Because people reference the 1970 Johnny Bench season as the benchmark for the catching position for a long time. It was the home run record for a primary catcher for 50 years. And we saw Salvi beat that, 48 home runs, surpassing his mark, but led the league 121 RBIs. And people looked at this. Sal had a good year that year. He was able to show that this record could be broken. But now looking at the 45 home run, the historical weight is really the gold standard about being behind the plate. Because remember, Salvador Perez was mixing it up. He was DHing. He was also playing first base that year a little bit. He was catching a lot, though. So looking at Cal Riley, I mean, he's done so with nearly 2 months remaining in the 2025 season, I should say. So he hit that home run August 10th, was the 45th of the year. Size for second old time in single season. Now, obviously, he's on pace for 54 home runs. Are we going to be looking at him breaking Salvador's record right away? Or are we looking at the greatest catching season? Like, what are we checking in on Cal Riley? Because I know he cooled down, as I mentioned, from the All-Star break. Are we still looking at him as one of the historically significant seasons we've seen from a catcher all time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I certainly think he's breaking that record. And you have to go back and look at some of the best seasons, but it's going to be hard to argue against the guy switch hitter, catch. Like, he's the fact that you can even have the comparison when Judge was still healthy, like have a argument of like maybe it should actually be Raleigh as MVP. Like, I think that just puts this in perspective. But it's some interesting notes. You mentioned how much he struggled in the second half here. It's noteworthy because he's still hitting some bombs. But I mean, if you look at month by month, so March, April, he hit 233 and let's see, 10 home runs. And then May, 304, 12 home runs. So double-digit home runs again in a month. June hit 300, 11 home runs. So the first 3 months, he's putting up double-digit home runs per month. And honestly, two of those months hit 300 or better. July only hit 194, still hit 9 home runs, so came close to double digits. So far in August, he's hitting 129, and he's got 2 home runs. Struggling. Still hit a couple bombs, but struggling. He's most likely not going to reach that double-digit home run mark in a month like he had several other times and came close to in July as well. I still think he gets the record, but I mean, depending on how much he struggles down the stretch and big moments, that Seattle's in one of the tightest races in the league. So like, we want to see how clutch he is too. But I still think you're going to have an argument for best catching season of all time. You mentioned the whole Salvi thing about catching, but also playing some first base. I think you got to give some credit to the Mariners management here also for resting him a little bit or dividing his time up. So 88 games at catcher, 28 games at DH. It's a significant amount of games not catching. But The interesting thing, again, if you keep on looking at the splits, this jumped out at me. Catching. On games he catches, he's hit, this is for the season, he's hit 262 with 36 home runs and 76 RBIs. So 36 of his home runs have come when he's actually catching that day or night.
Locked in.
As DH, which people would think is the easier thing, right? Shohei shouldn't pitch anymore. Just let him hit. It'll be better. Cal Raleigh has only hit 198 as the DH this year and has hit 8 of his home runs in those games. So, I mean, I don't know. That to me was noteworthy with this whole thing. But yeah, he's slowed down. But who's to say he's not going to have another hot month, gets through August, and suddenly September he's tearing it up.
For sure. And then we got to make note that no catcher in Major League history has ever hit 50 home runs in the season. So if he's able to do this, it would be a special season no matter how you do it. For Salvador Perez, he did catch 120 games back in 2021, and he DH'd for 40 games. So he played 160 games that year. Ironman. Just a great season from Salvi. I had him in fantasy that year, and he was just remarkable to watch. So a lot of great stuff to watch. And Cal Riley, he's slowed down like you mentioned before, but it feels like he's right in the mix right now. One of the more productive lineups in baseball. They reinforced it, what they did with Josh Naylor and Suarez. I think they did a good job putting it together. They're a team to watch for sure. We're going to finish up our conversation here talking about Bo Bichette, and we want to have a conversation about him. He's a looming free agent. And I think, Devin, he sits in this fascinating middle ground between star and superstar. We've seen him be hyped up to the point where we believe that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to build around him. I think he's the kind of player whose skill set doesn't really always fit the modern face of baseball template. He's not going to be the guy that is the guy in baseball. He has, he had the long hair for a little bit. It's not now cut. There was a lot of appeal to Bo Bichette with fantasy leagues a couple years ago. He was the number 1 overall pick. I think the market value right now will certainly place him in that tier where it hits free agency. He's going to be one of the top free agents, if not the biggest free agent offensively out there this winter. So when he's been right, looking at the numbers, looking at 46 hits in 115 at bats over a 27 game stretch this year, 400 average in that span. And the Blue Jays right now are 24-10 since June 28th, which is the second best mark in the American League. And they, as we know, we talked about the Yankee struggles. They erased a 9.5 game gap in the East. And now they're the betting favorite to win the division. And a lot of it lies on the shoulders of a guy like Bo Bichette. So we look at the 2024 season, the guy struggled. I mean, he had that calf injury, he had the broken finger, and he hit just 225, which is not Bo Bichette. Posted one of the worst seasons of his career. And looking at that, I think a lot of the value of a Bo Bichette looked at as like, maybe he's more of that player. There wasn't a lot of appeal for Bo going into the season. And I think it's the perfect time right now. But if you look at the window of 2021 to 2023, consistent, almost 300 hitter, average 25 home runs, 4.5 WAR. This is a guy who led the league in hits twice, steady middle of the order presence. And looking at the guy like him, he could be going out there and finding a good home somewhere else and potentially being a superstar. And reaching free agency at 27 is a big deal. 2 years younger than Trey Turner when he signed his 11-year deal with the Phillies. And I think the offensive numbers bear striking resemblance to what Trey Turner got. 11 years, $300 million. Of course, market value is different now. Where do you see him going? Because I think he's better than Willy Adames. He's probably a step below Trey Turner. What team is going to be signing him?
Oh, man, his free agency is going to be fascinating. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there slowly here. All right. So first of all, you mentioned San Francisco. Last year, we were having discussions on this podcast of like, I remember you saying you thought maybe Bo Bichette would be traded to the San Francisco Giants. It fits. And it made sense. Willy Adames is there. So we'll get more to the discussion of who might sign him. I have one team in my head that makes a lot of sense. But before that, just highlight some other things because some of these numbers jump out at me. There's not a lot of people. I'm glad we're having this segment because not enough people are talking about Bo Bichette this year. So since I just posted this actually this morning about how he and Vladdy are just carrying this Blue Jays team, as good as well-rounded as they are leading the way. And it's kind of cool to see in what is probably their final year together, most likely. Obviously, Blue Jays decided to pay Vladdy, so I don't think Bichette's staying. I'd be shocked. And I think he's ready to go elsewhere, too. I'm glad he's having a good final season there, but before the season, a lot of quotes made it sound like he's ready to go. So since the All-Star break, he's hitting 361, 4 home runs, 25 RBIs, which is like second in the league, 980 OPS. He's been great. Now, if you ask the question, is he a superstar? Well, let's try to compare him to another guy who I think most people would consider a superstar, Francisco Lindor. Down year, right? Streaky, but still, let's compare it. Interestingly enough, B-WAR, 2.6 for Bo Bichette, 2.7 for Lindor. Very similar. They played the same amount of games, almost the exact amount of plate appearances, so it's a good comparison to look at. Bichette has significantly more hits. Lindor has him on home runs by a few. RBIs, Bichette has him easily. Stolen bases, Lindor has that. And then if you go batting average, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS plus, Bichette gets all of those. So despite being down slightly in the WAR department, he checks a lot of these boxes over Lindor. Now, yes, it is a down year for Lindor, but still, if we're comparing superstars, that was the first one I decided to check. And I was the similar at bats and games and all that stuff. It was pretty cool to look at. I think quietly he's close. I don't know if I see him as the guy who can carry a team because I feel like to carry a team, you do have to pop a decent amount of home runs. Like I think of guys who carry teams as like 30 plus home run guys. And he hasn't shown that. Like when he first came up, he was advertised as having a lot of pop. But the last several years, it looks like that's not really his game. He's good at pretty much everything else, though. And then the other thing I wanted to point out before I move on to which team I think maybe takes a look at him this offseason. If I look at the entire league for the entire season, all positions, all hitters, you look at the split of hitting and runners in scoring position, he is number 6 on the list. No, sorry, number 5 on the list of everybody in the league with a 183 WRC plus with runners in scoring position. The only people ahead of him are Freddie Freeman at 184, Pete Alonso at 208, and a lot of that's his first 2 months of the year where he was insanely hot with runners in scoring position. Gunnar Henderson, 220, Max Muncy, 224. He's ahead of Aaron Judge by a little bit, right? He's ahead of Will Smith, who's had a great year. It's impressive to see him amongst those, and I think it's a surprise for a lot of people. So superstar, I think he's on the fringe of it. Star, I think he's certainly there. I'm glad to see him bounce back because he had a year there where it kind of was like, what happened? It looked like someone stole his superpowers. As far as a team, the team that makes too much sense is the Atlanta Braves. Shortstop was their black hole all year. Obviously, Nick Allen has played great defense. He's an amazing defender, but he's not going to give you much on offense. They had Orlando Arcia there for a couple of years. That's, he was fine for them, played over his head for a while until they ended up releasing him this year in Colorado last time I checked. So that is a black hole for them. Now, will they spend the money necessary to go get a guy like that? I have my doubts, but it seems like he would be a target for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I like that fit as well. And I think anything under $200 million for him would be a surprise because we watched Willy Adames get 182 over 7 years last offseason. And we mentioned the Giants' desperation, not unable to secure the superstar, quote unquote. They wanted to have a splash in the offseason. I think Bichette, the fact that he's 27, like I mentioned, 2 years younger than Trey when he hit the same spot, I think a lot of the similarities to Turner pre-free agency is going to bear pretty well for him in free agency. And you mentioned with the Vlad Jr. signing long-term, Toronto, certainly, in my opinion, they're not going to commit to a massive deal to another infielder. I think they already decided to move away from him, which is, again, maybe he takes a discount to stay. Who are we to speak on that? Maybe he decides to take a team-friendly deal to stay with Toronto, likes what they're building there, especially with the success this year. I don't think there's going to be a shortage of suitors. I like the fit you're looking at. I personally picture him in a Red Sox uniform. I know there's an inundation of just all the big pieces they have here to make sense, and they'd have to move things around to make it make sense. I also look at the Cubs too, maybe sliding Dansby over to another infield spot to make room for him. I think that would be maybe a consolation for losing Kyle Tucker. Certainly a lot of money to spend if Kyle Tucker's not re-signing with you. You need a little bop in that lineup. I like a lot of what that makes sense. And you can never rule the Dodgers out. I think, if the fact that they can add his bat to their lineup, they'll figure it out. They've shown a way to make all those things work, especially with the DH in both leagues now. They'll figure out a way to get his bat in there. But the thing is, I think looking at the all-around tool set of a guy like Bo Bichette, it's very understated. As you mentioned before, I think he's more the player we saw in that first window from 21 to 23 than where we saw last year. And proof positive. The Blue Jays, although Milwaukee's stealing headlines and everyone else, the Blue Jays are playing really good ball for what they've constructed this year, and they may be cruising to a division title, and it's on the back of a guy like Bo Bichette. So definitely, he's not going to worry about finances down the line. He's going to get a big deal. He's going to enter free agency really as one of the more in-demand players. I don't think he's a superstar by definition, but I think he's going to get paid like one. So I guess that's all that matters for the Bichette family.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe he doesn't see the years that Trey and even Willy Adames got, like a high AAV, but maybe more of a 4 or 5 year deal, similar to like Bregman getting 3, right? But a super high AAV, maybe some opt-out situations similar to the Bregman thing. I think maybe he gets longer than 3, but because of the up and down nature and the vastly different seasons he's put together, some clubs might still be like, I'm not sure exactly the player you are. Or like, are you a peaks and valleys guy that year by year you're completely different, or did you really just have one bad year and you kind of figured out the player you are and this is what it is? So I could see something like that, high AAV but less years than a Trey Turner or Willy Adames. The Red Sox, I mean, like you said, I just think there's too much confusion there with so many pieces already. And even we just mentioned Trevor Story Thursday night on our last episode of how well he's turned the corner. He has a player opt-out, it looks like, in his contract after this year. He can opt into the 2026 and 2027 year if he decides to stay. And then 2028, there'd be a club option. So his contract's kind of a little, not confusing, but it's intricate. Like there's some things in there. And I feel like the only way they go after Bichette is if Story's not there, because there's already so many other pieces that you're trying to fit into the puzzle. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. His free agency is going to be very intriguing to watch.
So let's not rule the Yankees out either. If they're embarrassed, don't make the playoffs. They want to make a splash. Obviously, Anthony Volpe's been, he was Gold Glove the year before, and all of a sudden the wheels fell off, and he's made the most errors in all of the league thus far this year. Shortstop is going to be a need for them. And if you want Volpe in your lineup, maybe they decide to switch positions or figure it out. But if the Yankees get embarrassed, they do respond. We saw them defensively get embarrassed in the World Series, and they went out there and tried to shore up the defensive woes. It didn't work out the way, but they did go in the direction of shoring up guys like a Paul Goldschmidt, a Cody Bellinger, finding guys out there that have history of playing solid defense. That might be more of a conversation about the fundamental issue that's in the Yankees organization, that no matter what, you're not solving the issue. But you see Brian McMahon playing good defense at third. He's not the long-term answer there for them. So what are you going to do for the infield? And I think Bo Bichette, if you want to make a splash this offseason, he's going to be one of the biggest names out there. And it quells a lot of woes when you sign a big free agent. People get excited. They buy the shirts and all that. It's a good deodorant for sometimes shit that stinks.
Well, let me ask you this. Are we burying the lead a little bit? Like, is it actually just going to be the Dodgers who sign him?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't think you could rule them out at all. Like, they love to put the depth in there, and they'll figure out where they play later. And are they truly convinced by what their infield construction is right now? I think maybe the Mookie fallout right now has to have them concerned. Like, is he on the other side of his career? I don't personally believe that. But if they feel like Mookie is more the player we saw this year, at least, 75% of that player, I'd be concerned too. And you want to add it back because their window right now is to win. They got a lot of aging players out there. They have to find a way to get another World Series title in this window. So maybe Bo Bichette's the answer in the short term for them.
I mean, yeah, even if you offense aside, maybe you're tired of putting Mookie at short and Miguel Rojas at short, and you see Bichette as like a long-term answer. Maybe you can move Mookie back to the outfield or see what happens there. But I don't know. That was not a team that came to my mind right away. But like, let's be honest, they should. Like, I think it could be a fit, and obviously financially, like, nothing is a big deal for them. So he could be wearing blue, just a different blue.
For sure. And we're going to continue to cover Bo Bichette and have conversations about him. And because a big October could add a couple new $1 million to that contract, because we know that does play a part if he's able to play hero for Toronto and get them back to the postseason in a big way. But let's head to our Twitter polls and conversation and talk about all the things going around on social media. All right, Devin, so you posted a Twitter poll out there asking the question, which potential pitching trio is the most intimidating in a postseason series?
Yeah, I think, we're getting closer and closer to that time. And I think some teams have emerged where you look at their rotation, especially after the deadline, when everyone's rotation is more so set in stone. And you're like, oh, wow, that's going to be a tough 3 to mix it up with in a short playoff series. So you can tell me afterwards if you feel like I missed a threesome that should be in there or that you would write in. But these are the ones I went with. So the question, and which is still active, by the way. So if you're hearing this, it has another 13 hours left. So you can go and chime in and vote, and might change it a little bit. But as of now, which potential pitching trio is the most intimidating in a playoff series? So your choices are the Rangers trio, which I named as DeGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and Merrill Kelly. I mean, some people might say maybe it's Jack Leiter, but I'm putting the vet in there, guy with World Series experience. They got 21% of the vote so far. The next choice is Peralta, Woodruff, and The Miz in Milwaukee. So far, very shocked at only 8%. I know The Miz is on the shelf right now, and maybe that came into people's minds when they were deciding. But I'm in this poll, assume the guys that I'm putting in the poll are healthy when you're about to match up with them. That's pretty damn intimidating. And if you ask me, the next one, by the way, I don't know if I actually said 8% for Peralta, Woodruff, and Miz. Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, and Ranger Suarez in Philadelphia. Now, some people might say take Suarez out and put Nola in because he's coming back. Let's stick with the guys that are pitching now. 50% of the people have voted for that threesome right there. Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, and Ranger Suarez. And how can you argue? We know how good Wheeler is. I know he's not been quite as good recently. And Christopher Sanchez recently has looked sometimes like the best pitcher in the league. So I get it. And then my fourth choice is the Mariners trio of Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, and George Kirby. They get 21%. So they're tied with the Rangers threesome of DeGrom, Eovaldi, and Kelly. So if you want to put your choice in there before the poll is over, go do it after you listen to this, or maybe as you listen to this. But your thoughts on those choices? Who would you choose? And is there another threesome where if I could put more choices than 4, who would you throw in there?
Yeah, I did vote for Wheeler, Sanchez, and Suarez on this poll. I think it left little doubt. I mean, most people out there would at least like to see in a postseason matchup. I think Wheeler, Sanchez, and Suarez definitely ran away with this, and for good reason. For me, I'd add the threesome of Michael King, Nick Pivetta, Dylan Cease. I think those three, especially with Michael King back being healthy.
If Cease is right.
If Cease is correct, yeah. But the way Pivetta's pitched for sure this year, I know he's Nicky P out there earning his value over there in San Diego. With Michael King being back, I think it's a really big deal to get him right come October. I know they're still trying to work through some things with Michael King to get him in a place where he can be who he was last year, at least percentage of it. But I would put the threesome there. I don't think I'd vote for them over Wheeler, Sanchez, and Suarez. I think what Philly's built over there with those three guys to run them out in a short series would be very intimidating. I do think there needs to be more love in Milwaukee with the Miz and Peralta and Woodruff.
Yeah.
They've been very good this year. But even Texas, dude, DeGrom, Evaldi, and Kelly, like with just Nate Evaldi is just like so filthy what he's done this year. And Jacob DeGrom at any moment can turn back the clock. He's been fantastic this year. As long as he's on the mound, he's definitely a threat to go out there and a postseason series, have any of those guys staring you down from the mound. It has to be very, very intimidating. So this is a good spot for baseball to be in as far as pitching goes, to have these threesomes, like an NBA jam of pitching.
Yeah, no doubt. And if I could add another, San Diego is a good point, and I thought about them for a while when I was trying to fill the fourth spot, and I was just like, Dylan Cease is just, I mean, look at his overall numbers. He just hasn't been the Dylan Cease you want him to be, and he's looked a little better as of late. But if he can get right, I agree that threesome can mix it up with these guys. And the other one, which is kind of a wait and see, more so on health, Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow. I mean, that's a hell of a threesome.
Sure.
Let's see if they can all be healthy going into the playoffs. And you can add Kershaw in the mix, who's 1,000,000 years old, but still keeps his 3-year ERA seemingly no matter what you throw at the dude. So interesting conversation, but I kind of agree. The Phillies one is hard to go against, but if I had to choose one of the other ones to go against the Phillies, you match them up against the Rangers, who I know Phillies and Rangers just play a series, but give me DeGrom versus Wheeler. They missed each other by a day. Former Mets. It would break my heart to see that in the World Series. To be honest, might make me a little nauseous, but it's a hell of a matchup. Evaldi, Sanchez, like that's a fun one.
Oh, for sure. So if you guys want to contribute to the Twitter poll or just conversation in general at TableSetters Pod over there on Twitter, always posting those up. Let us know your thoughts on that poll and who would be the threesome you'd want to face. And again, maybe we could figure out something to do like an MLB jam situation with the pitching rotations or figuring out ways to make that work. Because even though I know I've seen some of the shirts where they have the NBA jam for like some of the WWE shirts where they do the three players, that'd be a nice baseball design if one of those shirt companies want to get behind it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, maybe we should make it a table setter shirt. I mean, I've thought about I want to put, I mean, this is a whole nother discussion. Maybe we can talk about it on episode 100, but I still want to put some merch out there. Just have to figure out how to do it.
Oh, definitely. There's some cool designs out there that we could make. And I would like at least to put the TableSetters logo on a shirt, even proper, even without the ball and the bat on, just the TableSetters font and all that stuff would be pretty damn cool to do. Help people support our show. So I think it's a good way to do that. And we see a lot of people selling shirts out there, a lot of really talented people. But hopefully people would show love by buying some merch. But let's head over to who's hot and who's cold around baseball and talk about some of the players right now that are doing it well and doing it poorly. All right, so for red hot, ice cold here, we have some players to discuss, and we can go any direction. Devin, sometimes you go in a pitcher, you go with a team, you go with the first ever female umpire who got her first call wrong. A lot of people giving her some grief. That happens. She fits right into the club of the umpire. So
lay off her. Leave her alone. Yeah, all right. So I kept mine pretty simple. Sometimes I can't decide between players, and I list off a bunch of people and pitchers and batters. So today I got a pitcher for red hot and a batter for ice cold. So I'm keeping it simple here. My red hot player this week goes to Edward Cabrera of those Miami Marlins. There's a few guys I could have chosen from, but this guy deserves some love here. Stays in Miami. A lot of people thought he'd be traded. He's been one of those guys for a few years now. We all know is super talented, but has just never quite been able to put it all together. Has had a lot of little annoying injuries, and he's back on the roster. He's off the roster. He's on the IL. He's struggling. Maybe struggles to find the plate. Finally, it looks like we are getting glimpses of what this dude is when he's right, completely right, healthy, throwing over the plate, hitting his spots. In his last 4 starts, he has a 1.40 ERA, 9.82 K per 9, 0.70 whip, which is very important because control was kind of the issue other than health. And to see a 0.70 whip after 4 starts, pretty nice. And we'll be seeing the Marlins try to take advantage of that and turn him around for some younger players in the offseason. or do they see him as part of the future? It'd be nice if they figured, you know what, this guy's here and he's going to help us into the next, the next version of the Miami Marlins.
Well, if I'm a Fish fan, I'm definitely trusting the process of Peter Bendix because he's pushed a lot of right buttons so far. And if they can reinvest in this team, and of course, that's not only his job, ownership has to get behind it as well. They have a very nice core and their assessment of talent has been spot on. They're, to me, ahead of some of these other teams right now as far as analytics go, finding the most out of all these other players. It was a good interview on Baseball's Dead. Xavier Edwards it was like a 30-minute interview talking about their team and the vibes over there and how they keep it loose and what was the expectations going the season. Pretty revealing from Xavier Edwards of being pretty honest. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, they dropped it on Thursday. But Xavier Edwards, one of the bright young stars in baseball, has moved around a little bit. He, of course, was in Tampa and then found his way to Miami. Has really his fit a leadership role on that roster for a lot of the young players. But for me, looking at who's hot, I'm going to go with Blake Perkins of Milwaukee. Played center field today against the Mets at home. In his last 10 games, he's been a pretty good contributor, hitting .317, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. Of course, he went 0 for 3 today when I put the notes together, but 13 hits and 41 at-bats. He had 3 doubles, a 973 OPS. The biggest thing I'm looking at is striking out just 4% in his plate appearances during this run. He puts the ball in play consistently. He forces the opposing defenses to work, and that is 1 through 9 what the Brewers do. They make defenses work. They make you make the outs, and they don't just give you outs by striking out. And I think Blake Perkins represents who the Brewers are. A bunch of guys bringing their lunch pail out there, putting their hard hats on, and making everybody work. So shout out to Blake Perkins. I know he was pinch hit for Terang later in the game, but I'm impressed by this guy.
Fuck that guy, man. It's had to throw the Mets out at the plate. Like, we couldn't have gotten just let us tie the game and then go into extra innings, and then we probably lose after that. But no, shout out to Perkins. I'm sorry for the F-bomb, but he, frustrating week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever.
You know who this team reminds you of? When you're going through like a crop of like 1994 baseball cards, 1995 baseball cards, and there's all these like random teams. Like, I never heard of this guy on my team. This Brewers team encapsulates that. They're just like young go-hards that are just out there, and like these guys are either like working a second job or something. I know they're out here, they're major league players, but if you're a casual baseball fan and you turn on the playoffs, let's say they get to the National League Championship Series and you see these names outside of Contreras and Churio and the names that you probably know, like the Miz and some of the pitchers, you turn it on and be like, again, who's Isaac Collins? We got Andrew Vaughn. Wasn't this dude bad in the interstate in Chicago, sent down to AAA, and all of a sudden he's hitting bombs again? Yep. I don't know. This there's something magical going on, like Space Jam level on the other side of it for this Milwaukee Brewers team. They're sprinkling some fairy dust on this team 9 in a row, and Blake Perkins is a big part of that.
Yeah, it's insane. For my ice cold here, I'm going to highlight a rookie that has hit the skids a little bit, and I think this is pretty normal. Cam Smith of the Astros here, in his last 4 weeks, he's hitting 153, slugging 186, striking out just over 27% of the time. Only a 19 WRC plus, which is 3rd worst in the league. They've had to sit him down a couple times, try to let him get his head right. I mean, I think you have to remember this dude is 1 year removed from college baseball, much longer season. He's thrown into a pennant race. So you still got to cheer this dude for what he's done. This is not surprising. I think it's noteworthy to kind of remind ourselves how hard this game is, even for the brightest young stars. You get to this part of the season, and these guys are not used to playing for this long, day in and day out. So pretty normal to see. And also a reminder that the Astros, man, to push this thing across the finish line, they desperately need Yordan Alvarez to get back and give them something, anything. Houston is begging for it. Yeah, Correa suddenly has found his form, maybe only against the Yankees. Altuve's doing Altuve things, 250 home runs, all those things. But they're going to need a little bit extra here if they're going to hold off Seattle and even Texas.
I'm going to put the spotlight on Seattle with Geno Suarez, of course, acquired by them. He's been in a pretty deep slump right now, hitting just 125 over the last 14 games. Of course, he got 2 hits today, but in 48 at-bats, he's only had 6 hits with 1 home run, 3 RBIs, and 1 stolen base. He was caught stealing today as well. 418 OPS, 229 slugging percentage. He hasn't done a lot of damage at the plate since he's been arrived in Seattle. I know it's new places, new faces type of stuff with him. He has to get adjusted. But the plate discipline has been a big concern. As much as I was talking about our friend Perkins in Milwaukee, Suarez struck out 20 times in this span over the course of the last 48 at-bats. 94% strikeout to walk ratio, has only drawn 2 walks. I understand he strikes out a lot, but this is still high even for him. So, I mean, they're counting on his power. He's got to get it going. He can't be striking out at the consistent rate. He's got to make contact, make productive outs. And I think he will get going. He's a big part of this lineup, but definitely wanted to highlight that because if you look at these acquisitions, everyone's pumped about it. There is a lull of like, all right, some adjustment has to be made here.
Yeah, and it's not even technically a new place for him. And he's going back to Seattle after just,
True.
I don't know, what, 2 years or something. But being like, he knows, he hears the noise. He was like the crown jewel of the trade deadline, according to a lot of people. And remember, he got hit in the wrist like 2-3 days
I was
before
going
the
to ask
deadline.
you if you felt like that was an issue with him right now.
It certainly could be, man. Obviously, he passed through all the medicals to get the trade done. So, but things like that, just putting a little extra pressure on yourself, and you're going back to a place where you were not offensively the same player you were in Arizona. So you very easily could be pressing, or it just could be, once again, Seattle, you're not the guy. Like, you're not the same guy in that ballpark. Now, obviously, some other players have kind of put that aside. Cal Raleigh's doing historical things playing in Seattle, right? Randy Arozarena has like found his groove again, all over again, maybe even better than he used to be in Seattle this year. So there are success stories, but Eugenio Suarez has that history of not being the same dude in Seattle. So I'm not that surprised. I kind of said it before the deadline. I thought like Josh Naylor, before I knew both of them were going to go to Seattle, I said, like, I think Naylor might end up being the bigger acquisition when it's all said and done, no matter who gets him, than his teammate Suarez. It just turns out they're still teammates, just in a different place.
All right, well, let's come around third here and give us what we're looking forward to for the rest of this week and also going forward to the weekend. All right, as we say goodbye this week here, and we may have an episode later in the week. Like I said, I'll be traveling from Monday through Thursday, arriving late. So potentially we may have an episode sometime during the weekend. We'll see, give you guys some of an update. That's why we want to get this episode in here. As far as what we're looking forward to, we were going to have a segment here about prospects that we're going to be looking at for the stretch run. And it's kind of apropos to talk about Andrew Painter today because the Iron Pigs over there, minor league baseball, Andrew Painter was tagged for 7 runs today. So hugely unhittable, 4 1/3 innings. I still believe, though, I mean, again, looking at some of the stuff out there, this is a one-off situation. I think that he'll be a big piece going forward for the Phillies come the postseason. And I think looking at most of the guys out there, as far as postseason teams with highly prized prospects that are on the cusp coming up, I think Andrew Painter is someone to watch. I think Philly envisions him as being a potential boost to this rotation, potentially maybe how David Price was used for all the way back in 2008 for the Tampa Bay Rays,
Sure,
high-end innings when the stakes are pretty much high. And of course, there is a big piece for Painter, making sure he's ready, making sure it's right. But I do believe he will be the guy that's going to make a difference. But I mean, you can also look at Harry Ford over in Seattle. I think as top of the prospect list, he could have his path, blocked to the majors, Kyle Riley, but maybe you want his bat in the lineup. You figure out a different way. God forbid someone gets hurt. He's been one of the best catchers in minor league baseball this year. Hasn't played another position regularly, so you'd have to put him in DH. But come postseason, you want these bats on the bench out there that can make a difference and a big reason. So I'm just looking at some top prospects out there. Moises Ballesteros right there for the minors for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll play a role, but we were going to go deeper into this. But I thought, just want to mention Andrew Painter playing a role and watching him going forward. If he can overcome from the 7-run outing he had today.
Yeah, we can always get deeper into it. Maybe on episode 100, we can look at the top 100 prospect list and get more into like these guys are going to have an impact, or we can figure that one out. But I think that'd be fun to go with the theme a little bit. So you mentioned also Painter maybe having that role of like reliever in big situations. I remember when the Cardinals, back when they were a real franchise and they were actually good, they had. I didn't sneak that in there. I haven't talked shit on the Cardinals for a while. Okay, you know what? Let me stop for a minute. All right, I'll give them a compliment first. So what I was going to compare it to is when they had Michael Wacha kind of introduced as like in relief in big moments, and then was good for them as a starter down the stretch at some point as well. And anyway, I will say this about the Cardinals. Did you see? Because it's been a lot of episodes since I took a shot at the Cardinals, so I got to fit one in here. They trotted out Yadier Molina as like a guest coach this weekend.
I didn't follow. I was focused on the Yankees travesty.
Desperation for attendance. The attendance in St. Louis has gotten so bad that they need to bring Yadier Molina into a guest role for a couple days as coach. How far the mighty have fallen. Anyway, Don't at me, Cardinal fans. I will stick with your theme of minor leaguers, but a little different. I'm not going to highlight guys that are going to have an impact in the major leagues right now. There was a very exciting piece of news for Met fans here, and we need all the exciting news we can get right now. Where some of their, and I like when teams, this is becoming more of a theme. Teams do this where they're kind of keeping some bigger prospects together, like calling them up to the next level at the same time. The Red Sox did it with Mayer and Roman Anthony, and even Kyle Teal when he was still in that situation, Christian Campbell. So the Mets today, Jet Williams, Jonah Tong, Carson Benj, and Ryan Clifford all promoted to AAA. So now just one step away from the major leagues. And those all four of those guys could be big pieces for the Mets' future for a long time. I complimented you earlier for picking up Carson Benj in our fantasy league for one of your NA spots. I think he's probably the Mets' future center fielder. Jet Williams, who can also play center field, but also can play the infield, is a high prospect, has been for a while. And the guy I think most of us are most excited about, Jonah Tong. This guy, if you have not seen what he's done in AA, I mean, now is the test. Can he do the same kind of thing or even close in AAA? If he does, people are going to be salivating at letting this guy come to the bigs. I don't think it's this year, but maybe next year. And I think that's also a sign of maybe Brandon Sproat does now get called up to the bigs sometime soon, like imminently. But I was very excited to see that as a Met fan. Needed something to hang my hat on.
So just to put the finishing touches on the Cardinals criticism that you started here, I looked up the attendance for 2025 as far as where they rank. If I had to give you a number 1 through 30, where do you think the Cardinals rank in attendance this year?
All right, well, they can't be 30 because the A's and the Rays, right? Can't be 29.
Yeah, that's 30 and 29 for sure.
You got the Pirates are going to be lower. 1 to 30, I would guess the best fans in baseball have placed let me say 19th.
Wow, pretty dead on. 18. So teams like Arizona, Colorado has had more attended games more frequently. Texas, the LA
shout
Angels.
out to Colorado fans.
Yeah, dude. I mean, they were popping off. That Pittsburgh game, that was insane. The offensive game, they came back. I think they were down 9-0 in the first inning, where they came back and unbelievable game. That place was going off as if they just won the World Series. Yeah. Colorado's a passionate fan base. I know that they get a lot of rap. They're a football town, a lot of ways a hockey town now with the Avs being good, but they love their damn Rockies, and they're showing it more than St. Louis loves their Cards, apparently. 18th overall in attendance. Why? I understand
St. Louis
they're a
not
game
bad.
over 500. They're a game
just
over 500
won tonight.
today. Yeah,
they're 3.5. They're 3.5 games out of the wild card, the last wild card. Should we change it? Should it, instead of best fans in baseball, should it be 18th best fans in baseball?
I just don't understand, as far as attendance goes, how that they're that low, especially with you don't have any other franchises out there. It's, I mean, again, maybe you start pulling the thread of what St. Louis is. They've lost a football team. They've lost other franchises. Maybe they just don't show up when the going gets tough. And it's not like the tough is really there yet. They're 60-59. They're only shouting distance. That place is empty almost every single night. There's something wrong there.
I think we should change. I think Colorado, we should call them the best fans in baseball. It's impressive, man. They show up for that product continuously. I know it's like a beautiful setting and everything, but still, that's impressive.
Well, real quick, if you had to tell me the top 5 in attendance right now, who do you think it would be?
Yankees
2,
Phillies
4,
Yankees, Phillies, Red Sox
are 9. Which is weird because
so
the Red Sox should be. I mean, maybe it's capacity.
It's smaller capacity. Yeah, I should take that into account. All right. So what do I have so far? Phillies, Yankees,
and Yankees 4 and 2. So you need 1, 3, and 5.
I'm surprised the Yanks are not 1 there
by a significant margin, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. San Diego.
San Diego's 3. Shout out to them over there. 57 games, averaging 42,000 plus.
Wow. Atlanta's
7, which is pretty good for the team sucking as bad as they are this year.
Yeah, I just know like people love going to that stadium. All right, I'll have one more try. If I get another one wrong, then you're just going to tell me because that's 3 strikes at that point. Toronto?
Toronto's 11, and
right,
they're averaging 32,000. So the Dodgers are number 1, averaging 50,000 fans a night.
I was gonna say them, but then like I know they have this reputation of like leaving after 5, like coming late and like leaving after 5 innings. Should that
They have an extra 4 games in there though. 4 home games in there. 61 home games that they played. The Yankees are at 57, so that might even out. And then 5 is the Mets. Shout out to Citi Field and everyone answering the call from Stevie Cohen.
I don't know why I didn't say my own team. That's weird. Yeah,
39,000. Shout out to the Mets, dude. Almost 40,000 plus in New York. There's a lot of stuff to do out here. There's 2 teams, and we're both in the top 5. Baseball is alive and thriving, even though our teams are putting us through the goddamn ringer this year.
Seriously, give us something to cheer.
Well, we appreciate you guys listening to this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the week in baseball. We'll be back next week or potentially later this week talking all things baseball. We hope you guys follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TableSettersPod. As I mentioned, please leave a 5-star review if you like what you listen to. Let us know what you think. Send us a message. If you want to have a conversation about something out there, we will engage you on the show. Ask us a question, all that good stuff. But we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. Until that time, we will talk to you after a while.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone in a year that has been